We're going to dive right in. So, Employer Brand 101. 1 hour is only enough time to scratch the surface on this topic, which I'm sure you recognize and realize. So we're going to give you a pretty high level today and some things that hopefully you can bring back to your companies and start implementing today. But we have put together a pretty comprehensive ebook that we'll be sharing with all of you. So I'll be emailing that out probably in the next day or two. Watch your inbox for that because it's going to be a much deeper dive into the topics that we're covering today. So if you have questions, we will have a Q&A at the end. Feel free to write your questions down, or if something compels you, shout it out. So I'm sensing that you're all here because either Dennis paid you or you're experiencing something like this in your companies, and there's a good chance that it's keeping you and the leaders of your organization up at night, and you're wondering what to do about it. So I'm not going to talk too much on it. Again, there's a lot more information in the ebook that we'll share that goes deeper into these topics. Companies are really struggling to differentiate themselves in the workforce marketplace. So taking a look at what you're offering your employees as a value to work with your company, just as you would look at your customers and what the value proposition is for them. You need to start thinking of your employer brand that way. So your reputation as an employer in the marketplace is extremely important, and that's what we refer to as your employer brand. Every company has an employer brand, whether you planned it on purpose or it just happened by accident. And Caleb's going to talk in a little bit about why and how maybe you want to be planning for that rather than letting it happen by accident. Here are some statistics that really support that. And again, the ebook will take a deeper dive into these. But taking a look at that second one is particularly astounding to me. 70% of Americans would not take a job with a company that had a bad reputation, even if they were unemployed. Even if they were seeking employment and you had an open position, if you had a bad reputation, they're going to take a pass. And with unemployment as low as it is in Wisconsin, that's even scarier. And the financial impact, so organizations who actually have an employee value proposition and use it effectively are twice as likely to report achieving greater financial performance, in fact, significantly above their peers compared to companies that either don't have an employer brand or don't use it effectively. So we're going to turn it over to Caleb, who's going to talk about being intentional around attracting your new customer, the employee.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for coming. I'm actually super excited about this. This is the first of our series. I mentioned it to a couple of you during breakfast. We're going to have one of these a quarter as our goal, and this is the first part of a 3-part series, all about employer branding. So today we're going to talk about how to define your employer brand. Parts 2 and part 3 are going to be, okay, now you've got the brand defined, how do you actually align it? How do you get HR and marketing working together, pulling all your tools together to do it? And then part 3 would be how to engage non-wired employees, especially for manufacturing. You got people out on the plants, you've got people out in the field. They're not able to access things as easily as they used to. So, my name's Caleb Schad. I'm creative director here. I've been with the company for 8.5 years. Every time I say that, I feel like a little kid because I'm like, I'm 8.5, right? But it's a long time. In those 8 years, I have defined quite a number of brands. These are customer-facing brands, and they're also employer brands. The process and the strategies that we use to do that are the same. Obviously, your audience is very different, and the goals of that branding is very different. So I'm going to talk through our process. As Melinda said, I'm going to try to do it in 38 minutes, right? I'm going to race through this pretty quick. I'm going to hit everything at a high level, but I do want to make sure that everyone here leaves with enough tactical things. You can hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. This is a microphone for recording on there. It's not a microphone. Can you guys hear me? Do I need to talk louder? Is that all right? Yes. Talk louder. Okay, sorry. I'm going to stand down here. So it's the same process that we've used for all kinds of brands. And we're not going to keep any secrets. There's no secret sauce or secret weapon that we're going to hold back for ourselves. But what you're going to see here is just a high level. That ebook will go into everything a bit more depth. Let's get right into it. I do want to say, and I'll wait till that goes past, I do want to say that for a lot of people, employer brand, they'd want to talk about wages, they want to talk about benefits, they want to talk about salary benefits, right? Those are table stakes. If you want to play in the game, you got to be offering competitive wages, you got to be offering competitive benefits. That can't be the differentiator anymore. What the differentiator has to be is your story, the why, right? Like People are looking for what Melinda was just showing statistically. They're looking for a reason to commit their life to you. And that's what they're doing when they come on board as an employee. So really start thinking about that why, and that's what we're going to define right here. Our process has 3 phases. Those phases are the same as you'll see anytime you walk into a doctor's office, right? There's diagnose, there's prescribe, and then there's take your medicine. So we call them uncover, define, and align. There are 3 very distinct phases. You can move through them at your own pace. Uncover often is a very boring phase for a lot of people, especially if you're a doer. You want to just get going. A lot of people want to gloss over uncover. They think, I already know what my problems are. I already know what's going on. I don't need to do all that. We have that information. Let's just get going and get making things happen. And that making things happen is the define phase. That's where you start to actually put form around your new mission, your new employer brand. And then align is where the rubber hits the road. You're actually rolling out tactics. People are starting to see. And we have subsets for each of these phases. So uncover. Similar to brand development, uncover is the phase where you have to see where you're at. What's going on? What's going on in the marketplace? What's going on within your own walls? What's going on? What are your strengths that you maybe didn't recognize? What are some of your weaknesses that you need to shore up? This is where you have a chance to pull people from across the organization that would not normally sit in a room together and work through, get all on the same page. What we have found is a lot of times people will think they know what their problems are, and they think they all agree on what those problems are, but once they actually sit down in a room, they start to talk about it, they start to put things in writing, you realize there's actually some misalignment here. I thought you were thinking the same thing as me, and that very often is the case where you're able to uncover misalignment within your own team that you obviously have to shore up first and foremost. So uncover is broken into 4 sub-phases. 1 we call data collection. That's just pulling everything together that you have. 2, we use employee engagement surveys. We know that Gallup has a lot of data on this. We know that engaged employees, there's an engagement crisis within America, and that non-engaged employees can have a severe impact on your employer recruitment efforts. We know that our employees are #1 recruiters for us, right? Like the word that they're giving out on the street about our company paints a much bigger picture than any brochure or website or anything else that we can do out there. So we need to make sure that our current team is engaged. You need to look at your competitors, just like any other kind of customer acquisition situation. You have to see who's stealing your talent, who out there is eating your lunch when it comes to hiring. And then discovery session is a 4-hour typically meeting where you pull people from across the company. We're going to get into each of these in more depth. But I do want to, one thing I forgot to mention just a minute ago is because of the crisis that we're in, and it literally is a crisis, there are companies out there who will post a job opening and have no resumes, nothing, not a single applicant, right, for some of these positions. We have such record unemployment that you are now finding yourselves as a company in a 2-front war, whether you like it or not. You're in the one front of the war is chasing who the customers are that are going to buy your product, and the second front is who your customers are that are going to produce your product or produce your service. That's an important distinction. They're not employees. You have to kind of move on from them being considered an asset and more to how do I sway and woo and convince them to come on board. But they're now a customer. All right, so let's race through these because I'm already getting a little long-winded, so I apologize. Data collection. Take everything that you have. Take all of your careers page, take your brochures, take LinkedIn profile, take your Glassdoor reviews, take any kind of job postings you've created. What we do is we print them out. Old world, right? We print them out and we'll fill a room with them. We'll put them up on the walls. We'll just tape them up onto the wall. And we walk around, we start looking at everything. What are the headlines? What are the words that we're using to describe our company and what it's like to work here? What kind of imagery have we chosen? How does it look? What nonverbal cues are we giving away about who our brand is and what kind of a company we are to work with? Employee handbook, anything else, if you have trade show graphics, if you do job fairs, make sure those graphics are up there. How consistent is it? Is it some things look really beautiful, some things were done by this team, that team, they're just disparate. Start pulling all that together. Mentioned employee engagement surveys and the importance of having engaged employees. These surveys are crucial. A lot of companies don't want to do them. A lot of companies think, I already know this, I know what people are saying, I'm not going to learn anything new by doing it. We feel it's really crucial, first and foremost, because it gives you actual data. It gives you numbers that you can benchmark against. So we like to do this when we start with someone, right away at the beginning, so we have a benchmark so we can show where are we going, have we moved the needle at all. You'll ask all kinds of questions from how satisfied are you at working here, to how satisfied do you think other people are based on your conversations with working with you. You're going to ask probably questions about what kind of a company do you think we are. Are we a very secure company? Are we a very aggressive risk-taking company? Are we a visionary company? Are we more traditional kind of company? You'll start to try to find descriptors for your brand out of this already. Keep it short. It shouldn't be overwhelming. It should not be a 3 or 4 page document. It should be probably 10 questions. Make sure you're considering how do I get people who are out in the field or out in the manufacturing plant. Make sure that you get everyone's input, not just your white-collar office employees who have access to email or access to the internet, where these things are sometimes easier. And then make sure you account for it in their work schedule, that they don't have to do this at home at night, something when they're supposed to be with their family. Competitive research. Now, your competitor in your business side is entirely different from your competitors for talent, right? So I've thrown up here some screen grabs of just local manufacturers. Now, none of these people are competitors with each other when it comes to the products that they sell, but they do have to chase each other for talent. There's a lot of overlap between CNC machinists, welders, engineers, all kinds of different skill sets. So when you do a competitive research, you're going to start primarily geographically, probably, right? You got to look at who's in my area that's also hiring similar talent from the similar talent pool as me. You'll probably have to do this across multiple locations. If you have multiple locations, you got to make sure you see who's in this town or who's in that town or this state, this nation even. And then you do basically the exact same thing you just did for yourself with the data collection. You start to pull whatever you can find publicly of theirs. If you've seen them at other job fairs, pull some of those photos, take notes on that. Look at their job posts, look at their LinkedIn and Facebook profiles, any kind of social media. Really look at obviously their careers pages or their website in general. What are they saying? And are they positioning themselves as a really visionary or exciting company to work at? And do you have to chase any of that? And then the final step of uncover is a discovery session. Now, this is another one where a lot of people, you tell someone that we need you to commit to 4 hours in a room, 6 hours in a room. We've had some discovery sessions for very large projects go 2 days or 3 days, which is obviously depends on the scale of the project. When you ask people to commit that kind of a calendar, they're like, I don't know if I need this. What's the point of this, right? Well, the point is a good discovery session will pull people from across your organization. Now, before I make it sound like you're going to have 30 people in a room, you would never do a discovery session with a room this size, or we would try not to. We try to limit it to 6 to 10 people max. We've done more if we have to. We always try to do it in person. We want to be able to see each other and talk to each other and read body language. That's very important. But the point of discovery session is get people together into a room who don't always get to see each other and talk to each other, and start to really dig into what your business objectives are and your strategies are. What are your pain points? What's going on out there where, what positions are you maybe having a hard time filling? Where are you having a lot of success at filling? Are there lessons from the successes that you need to pull over to those areas that you aren't working about? It helps create understanding and alignment. This is the session where a lot of times that misalignment will unveil itself or reveal itself. And then it also exposes gaps between how you're actually perceived out by your workforce, because we do, in our discovery sessions, we would always ask for people who are on the front lines, people who are doing it, have 1 or 2 of them in the room, have someone from probably customer service or sales in the room, obviously someone from HR, probably someone from marketing. Make sure you have the right team around. Once you get that team from people who don't always talk to each other, you're going to see some misalignment. Now, if you do this for yourself, a couple key points of advice. One, make sure you have an empowered moderator. You have to have someone who is not an active participant, who's not necessarily towing the line in one direction or another, but rather really keeps the conversation moving, shuts down the conversation if it gets off track or tries to bring it back on track. And the empowered part, this is crucial because we see this happen quite a bit, is if you do invite your CEO or other leadership team, and someone from leadership should be on there because you need vision of the company and the strategy for the future of the company represented, make sure that whoever the moderator is has the authority to say, we've seen a lot of times where a CEO may dominate. They just try to talk, or they just start to, they're generally very take charge kind of individuals, right? So you need someone who can say, thank you, but I haven't heard yet from Jacob, and I would really like, I can see he's got something to say on this topic, so I'd really like to hear from Jacob. So if you can just hold your thought, I'm going to go to Jacob for a minute. That kind of empowering where it's not going to be perceived as offensive or they're overstepping their bounds or something like that. There shouldn't be none of that. There should be a very safe place to, as our friends from Initiative 1 would say, take the under the table stuff and put it up on top of the table. That gets us into the define phase. So at the end of Uncover, we would take everything, and we would recommend you take everything that you've learned and compile a key findings document. This should be an executive summary kind of document where you're not just regurgitating the data and the facts that you found, but you're starting to look for any kind of insights in that data. So what are some key words or key holes that we're identifying, any of those misalignments you've identified, things that you might want to, you'll already, coming out of Uncover, you'll already have a pretty clear idea of where you think you want your employer brand to go. And now it's time to start doing it. So this phase of the presentation, I'm actually gonna, we do have a little worksheet that you guys can walk through. As we go through this, I'll just pause a minute there, here and there, and thank you, Melinda. We can just start to fill it out, jot it down ourselves. Obviously, we would never recommend doing this without having properly done the Uncover phase. You actually need to do the research and so forth. But this will give you a chance to start thinking of how we would approach it and just start doing it for yourself as we go along. Then it'll give you a sense of what you might want to bring back to the office later today. Okay, so the define phase for an employer brand is broken into 5 key sub-phases. These are sequential. They have to happen left to right. We start with key strengths. We're going to take those key strengths, and we're going to get, when we get out of the out of key strengths, we're probably going to have 40, 60 maybe total key strengths about our organization. We're going to pick the top 5 of those that we're going to hang our hat on. These are the 5 things that employees, potential recruits and employees need to know about our company moving forward. We're going to then convert those into actual unique buying propositions, the things that people purchase on. By then, we'll be at a point where we can start to put this into writing. We can start to share it internally with our team, and we do that through a positioning statement, which helps narrow even further. And then finally, we'll start to create some of the actual language and some of the stuff that's going to make it out into the public. So let's get going on what this could look like. Key strengths. Key strengths are, you've gone through Uncover, you've listened to as many people from your team as possible, you've surveyed your entire team, if possible, through the engagement survey. Now you take all of that information, you get into a room with a subset of your team, probably 2, 3, 4 people, depending on how many need to be stakeholders, and you literally just start brainstorming what are rational, objective facts about our company that we think potential employees would want to know. What are some, this can be things about your product that are unique or exciting to work on. It could be things about your culture. It could be things about your vision for where you're going as a company. It could be if you do have incredible benefits or you do have incredible salary packages, that's fair, put that in there. But they don't have to be unique. It doesn't have to be something that you're doing that no one else is doing. They should be things that are, but if they're commodities, I guess, if they're general, then try to find, are they general things that we do just a little bit better, or that are just, we do them in a different way that's a little bit more unique. So, and at this point, we're just brainstorming. We're not judging. So put them all up, okay? So for example, if we were going to do this, let's say we were doing this for a manufacturer in Northeast Wisconsin who builds heavy equipment, and they're like fire trucks, let's say. And let's just call this fake company Appleton, right? some of the key strengths we might say for Appleton would be, it's a company that's known for being hardworking. It's a patriotic company. They really represent something for us. It's a proven company. It's been around. It does what it says it's going to do. It's durable. It's got a people-first culture. When we make decisions, we don't make them based only on shareholders and only on profit, but we really try to think of the impact it'll have on our people and doing right by them. Maybe this company offers a great continuous education program. They're always offering new training opportunities and reimbursement for schooling. Maybe it's a stable, long-standing company. It's been around for a long time, and it's known for perseverance. The products they make persevere, the people they hire persevere. It just has a real perseverance, can-do attitude, right? Those might be some of the key strengths we could throw into the mix for this company. So let's go ahead and just take two minutes, we'll say, and just think about your own organization and just brainstorm it. Just let it go. Just write down a handful of them if you could. A lot of companies will say things like, our people are our difference. When we do this, what I would encourage for you to do is to challenge yourself. Keep trying a little bit harder. So what about your people is the difference? Are your people extraordinarily upbeat and optimistic when new projects come in? They're just a pleasure to work with. Are your people deep experts within what they do? Are your people, they've been around for a long time? Are they veterans in the field? Think about some of those things. So dig a little bit deeper. And we'll just do it for another minute. Get a couple more. All right, so we're going to move on. So what do we do with these? We got our list of key strengths, and like I said, we would typically try to get down 50, 60 of them, as many as we can, right? 40, whatever it is. No one can remember 40 things about your company, and you can't pay enough advertising space to put out 40 things about your company, right? So you have to figure out, what are the top 5? What are the 5 most crucial of those key strengths? What are the things that, if I can only tell someone 5 things about us to convince them to work here and not at the competition down the street, I think these are the top 5. Those are called your unique selling propositions. They're going to be rational because they're key strengths. They're still facts about you. So take a second here and let's think about what on your list would be the key strengths or the USPs out of your key strengths. For this make-believe company we're talking about, let's say we pick people-first culture and perseverance. We think those are just really compelling ideas, that this company has a people-first culture, even though they're so big that they really do care about who works there. Okay, that's really interesting. Let's see what we can do with that. And then 2, perseverance. There's something exciting about grit and about maybe the product they make, and we think that's really cool, and that can be compelling differentiator, okay? So go ahead and take a minute and just pick 2 from your list for now, just as an exercise. All right, so from there, once we have our USPs figured out, as I mentioned, those are rational. But we know behavioral science teaches us that people don't make, we wish we did, but people don't make decisions based on reason, right? People make decisions based on emotion. And so we have to find what are the emotional triggers behind our USPs. If we go out there and we just say, we're known for our perseverance, or we have a people-first culture, okay, you're hoping that they figure out what that means. You're hoping that they figure out what that'll feel like to work at a company that way. So we need to take these and figure out take our USPs and determine what are the emotions behind them. So how we do that is, it almost feels like you're using a thesaurus, but it truly does, there are shades of gray in all of these phrases. You'll put each key strength up and you'll begin to brainstorm, what are some emotions, how does that key strength make me feel? So when I think about people-first culture, what do I feel that would be like to work there? When I hear perseverance, it's a company known for perseverance, what does that feel like? Some of your words or descriptors may be, for people first, I feel supported, I feel encouraged. Knowing I'm working at a company like that makes me feel cared for, I'm cared about, I'm empowered. Perseverance. I really like this idea of won't quit. I like the sense of accomplishment that comes with it. I really like the sense of being confident about what I'm doing, and the company I work for is really cool. Again, we'll find a way. So this is fluffy stuff, right? It feels kind of, I don't know, but I can't stress enough how critical it is. So take a second and just try to brainstorm a handful of emotions that you may feel for each of those 2 key strengths, the USPs you just selected, and then we'll go through and pick them. So for this one, I'll just say, for our exercise today, we're going to say we really like this cared for about as our UBP, and we really like we will find a way as a hint towards the language and the way, the emotion that we might use for perseverance. So go ahead and take another minute or two and brainstorm some of the emotions tied to your USPs. It's not easy stuff. Like I said, a lot of the words will feel the same. A lot of them will point towards the same emotion, but there's going to be a nuance between them that'll help you, you'll feel is more compelling one way or another. All right, so what do we do with that? Now we've got key strengths. We've narrowed those down into USPs, and we've taken those USPs, which are rational, and we've found the emotional triggers behind them. Next is where we start to actually codify some of this and should be able to share it internally with our team, right? This is where leadership teams, other leaders within our organization are going to get to start to see this is where we want to plant, as an organization, our flag. This is what we promise it will be like to work with us if you choose to come here. So it's the first step towards making it real. It's specific. For our positioning statement, we use a specific 4-field template. The first 2 fields are very simple. They're who are you talking to, and why don't we just dive right into it? Who are you talking to? Who you are, the fact about you, that, point of difference, and then because, reason why. So the setup for this is one long run-on sentence. Now, as you saw on the slide before, no bonus points for cramming everything in here, right? Like if you just shovel everything, all of your USPs and UBPs in here, again, people cannot remember, they can't remember all those details. Start narrowing in on the detail that's going to really, you feel like, move the needle. So let's keep using our sample company that we've been working through. 2 current and potential employees. This is an employer brand after all. Our company, Appleton, is a market-leading manufacturer of severe duty vehicles and equipment. Very simple, okay? These 2 come together pretty quick. That invest in our people and in innovation that revolutionizes the way people work. And because, reason why, this is going to be the most important field, because this is going to start pointing towards voice and personality, and it's going to carry emotion. Because every day, people doing some of the toughest work on the planet put their faith in us. They don't quit, and we won't quit on them, right? So this is your positioning. This is how a positioning statement comes together. 2 current and potential employees. My company, whatever our company name is a market-leading manufacturer of severe-duty vehicles and equipment that invests in our people and in innovation that revolutionizes the way people work. Because every day, people doing some of the toughest work on the planet put their faith in us. They don't quit, and we won't quit on them. Now you can see the word perseverance in there, right? You can see the word, there's people first in the organization. We won't take a minute to do positioning statement because that can get pretty tough to really narrow in, but take this back to your office and think about that. How would you fill in these blank fields? Okay, so what do we do with it from there? So now we've got this long run-on sentence, and I'm excited that some of our KI friends are here because I'm going to show you some of the work that we've done for them recently. What you have to do is you need to talk about, you now have to take your organization, your employer brand specifically, and you have to start thinking about how do we present ourselves to the world? Okay, we got all this data. We've done that through Uncover. We've started to define what we think our key strengths are, but how do we actually say this? Now, this again, for a lot of people, can feel kind of fluffy. It can feel kind of ridiculous, right? But start thinking of your organization as a person. Who are they? How do they sound? How do they present themselves? Are they very buttoned up in a full suit, or are they a little bit more casual? Are they using formal language, very AP style type language, or are they a little more loose with their language as well? The reason that this is important, this is not just window dressing, this is not just paint on the canvas. The reason this is important is all of these are giving cues to who you're going to recruit. Now, we all know that hiring the wrong person is incredibly expensive. It damages culture, it damages everything. The more you can hint at what kind of an organization you are in all of your public-facing employer brand pieces, your job postings, your web pages, and so forth, the better recruits you're going to get through the door who are going to fit in a little bit easier. So personality and voice are critical. Now, I mentioned KI. I want to show you, we didn't want to just make up a fake voice for this one. We thought it would be good to show some actual examples of work that we've done in the past that you can maybe think about how you've modeled. And there's more stuff in the book that goes into how to define voice and personality. But for KI, we did the same process that we just talked through. And here's an example of what we put. This is just a snippet from there of what we wrote for them. As an employer, KI is motivated and inspiring. A dynamic personality that's energized just to be around. KI exudes confidence, but KI is not arrogant. They're authentic and approachable, genuinely caring. At the same time, KI is always interested in trying new things, not afraid to take a chance here or there, because they know they'll learn as much from their mistakes as from their successes, and they encourage others to aspire to the same. You start to get a sense of who this is. It's written down. This is the kind of stuff that you can then share with your marketing team, with your HR team, with anyone, with your sales team, anyone who might be out there training, if you have in-house training departments, on how we present ourselves as an organization. And that wraps up the define phase. Now we are into the biggest, most complicated, and also the shortest step of the entire process, or for today's presentation, which is align. This is when everything has to come together. Now, one of the things that Imaginasium preaches day in and day out is internal-external alignment. You have to have a plan on how to make sure that the messaging that you're putting together is authentic, that it's something you can actually deliver on. Caveat there, many times your employer brand will be aspirational in some nature. It has to be, because if you're just regurgitating where you are, that doesn't help, right? It has to be aspirational. You have to then, if it is aspirational, if there are things that you know you want to do, but you're not, pardon me, you're not doing them at that level quite yet, those are the things that you want to, when you roll this out internally, you want to call out. You want to say to your team, hey, this is who we want to be. This is who we are striving to be. We're making genuine changes in X, Y, and Z processes and steps and departments to move there. We recognize that some of what you're about to see may not jive with who you think we are right now. We've seen that through our engagement surveys. Getting buy-in from internal is absolutely crucial, right? If you go out there with something that just is not who you truly are at the root, they can smell that a mile away, right? People are going to find out. And if your team does not buy in, as we mentioned before, they're our greatest source of referrals. Someone who comes to us as an applicant from our team is going to move through the process and be much better bought into our entire vision and company than random strangers off the street. So you have to have some kind of internal launch plan. You have to have a plan on how are we going to present this and put it together for our internal team. Once they're on board, once you've done that and checked that box, finally, we will start to put stuff out into the world that hopefully will move the needle, that will start to change how we're recruiting. I know it feels like a long way, but it's a tried and true process that makes sense and just works every time. So I already mentioned a bunch of this on internal alignment. I can probably move on quick. But if, as I mentioned before, your new brand is not authentic, make sure you call that out in the places where it isn't. But hopefully it is. We can't have an employer brand that is wildly different from who we are today. This is also not something that's set in stone. If you need to make incremental steps forward, then do incremental steps and revisit this in a year, in 2 years, whenever you start to make some of those changes. When you do an internal rollout plan, think about all the ways that you could impact your employees. From environmental graphics, are there installations, 3D installations, things on the walls? Is there mouse pads? Are there screensavers? How do we put up our new employer brand in front of them throughout the organization? Make sure that you're also thinking about people out on the manufacturing floor, or people who are driving trucks, or who are just out in the field day in and day out. How do you make sure this feels real to them and gets in front of them? Look at any kind of internal processes you already have. Do you have internal reviews? Obviously, you have employee reviews, performance reviews. How can you make your new employer brand message a part of that? Making sure that, do you understand it? Do you buy into it? Do you agree with it? How does that work into there? Are there regular meetings that you could somehow co-op a portion of that meeting to talk about this or to roll it out? Try to just look at everything that you're already doing and see where you can weave it in, rather than coming up with something new, some extra burden, an extra meeting that people don't necessarily want. Really take a look around with fresh eyes, if you can, around your space. Once you've done that, Now it's time to do the external plan. And the external plan is in many ways, going to be a lot easier, but also a lot harder than the internal plan. The ways it's going to be easier is you've already done a lot of this work through the uncover phase. You already pulled many of your assets together, your website assets, your handbook assets, and so forth, your trade show if you do job fair shows, booth display assets. Now you just got to put a plan together for how to update that. How do we change this? You also have a chance now, you probably heard of different things that you weren't doing before that you want to start doing. How do you get those into the queue? Getting them into a queue is also going to be critical. There's not an organization that we've ever worked with that can do this all at once. There just is not enough time or money within an organization to just bang and roll everything out all at once, generally. So start picking your hierarchy. Start picking out what's going to be most important. For us, almost always, the most important piece is going to be digital tools. They're fast to update generally, and they're the most public. They're the most sought after pieces that you're going to have. So make sure you're looking at your website, and not just your careers page. Make sure that what you're talking about on your careers page is reflected throughout the rest of the site so it feels genuine and authentic. Look at any other kind of trade show graphics if you have those are very important. Wherever you're getting the most of your recruits from, make sure you're looking at that. If it's LinkedIn or social media platforms, make sure you're updating that. So I want to show just now how this all kind of came together for KI recently. Up here you can see, because we want to just give you, again, a genuine example of what this looks like. Here are three of the, not all of the key strengths, I think for them that we had 6 actually, but for three of the key strengths that we identified after doing the uncover phase with them, and the USPs, I should say. Holistic wellness focus, they're known for just really caring about the wellness of their employees, and this isn't just physical wellness, this is emotional wellness, health and well-being in the full broad spectrum. They build the spaces where people live. The work that they do literally impacts how we learn, how we heal. It impacts the way that we interact with the world around us, the places where people work, I should say. And then they're a long-standing and stable company. They're the kind of company that has been around for a long time. They've weathered a lot of storms. They'll probably be able to weather storms coming up. So what we did was we had to identify what those UBPs are. We identified wellness means I'm cared for. It just really feels like a caring atmosphere when I work here. That's really important to me. Building spaces where people live and work, I'm making a difference. I am doing meaningful work. I am impacting people's lives through my work at KI, right? And then a long-standing and stable company, I can feel secure. I can plan for my future at a company like that. I could see myself there moving forward, right? Those were some of the USPs and UBPs that we identified for them. And you already saw their voice and personality on a couple slides back. So how does it come together? So we rolled this out to their internal teams a couple weeks ago, or they rolled it out to their internal teams a couple weeks ago at an annual meeting. Again, one of those opportunities where something's already going on. How do we make this a part of that rather than trying to do something new and disrupt production schedules and so forth there? And we put together, for that rollout, for the internal rollout, we put together a video. We did a little 2-minute video on why the work at KI matters. Everything that we've talked about here today has been why. Why am I going to commit the next 5, 10, 25 years of my life to you? Am I going to do work that will really fill me up? Am I going to leave feeling fulfilled at the end of the day? So we put together a video. This video had multi-purposes as well. It did cover many of their CSR efforts because we felt that was a strong why behind what they do and where they work. So I want to just share this quick.
A chair. It's not meant to stand alone. And at KI, none of ours do. Because, sure, KI is known for our furniture. But with every chair we build, every table or desk or divider, we're also building something else. A future. Hope. Communities. Every piece of furniture we create is an opportunity to touch lives, to unlock possibility, to change how we live. how we experience the world, how we experience each other. This is why we invest in the places we call home, supporting the health of our employees and the well-being of our communities, reducing our environmental impact and furthering conservation efforts. It's why we promote inclusiveness and respect, valuing all those who work and walk alongside us. This is what empowers our people, brings us together, enables us to protect the world around us, and offer a helping hand. All of this, and so much more. It all starts here. Changing lives, one chair at a time.
So the point of this, obviously, is let's find the emotion. If we know that emotion is what drives people, we have to figure out our why, and we have to find that emotion behind it. We could have just said, KI's been a company that's been around for a long time. They have a real strong wellness program, and they do some really meaningful work. We have to, as I said earlier, we have to just keep pushing ourselves. We have to keep challenging ourselves to do a little bit better. And we wanted to show this video because it's important to see how all these they can feel like meaningless words, like, okay, why am I listing this? Why am I doing this? They're all the foundation. They're all the blueprint of what you will then actually create and goes out into the public, which is something like this. So with that said, that is my as fast as possible employer brand kind of steps. As I said, those are the steps that we use, that any agency that I know of out there generally uses. The same three-step process of uncover, define, and align. We held nothing back. I had to race through it obviously pretty quickly. But as Melinda said in the opening, you have an employer brand right now. Everyone here knows that. And you've probably tried to influence it in some ways, or in some, and you've had some success. Maybe some have had more success than others. It's always better if you can just be intentional and really grab this horse by the reins and lead it. So with that, any questions of me before I turn it back over to Dennis or Melinda? I'm not actually sure. No? Was everyone able to hear me? Yeah, great.
How do you make sure that I've heard before that some companies, their customer brand is not not aligned with their employee brand, and it causes some disconnect for the employees. That what are we? And you want them to be connected to that purpose.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's such a great question. And that was something thank you. You called out something I glossed over. I forgot to mention earlier. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like your customer brand, if you're going out there and telling customers, we are this, and your employees are looking at that, and I think every organization has this. I know even Imaginasium at one point had a lot of this, was like, what are we saying we do? You need to be able to get on the board about it. So the first step for an employer brand is when you're pulling in that data collection phase, make sure you are pulling your customer-facing stuff and putting that into the mix. Obviously, you want to keep it separated so that you know this is what we're saying to employees. Use that customer-facing brand as a starting point. But now, customers care about different things than employees, right? So that's why your key strengths are going to have to be different. You're going to have to do two brand development processes, unfortunately, because you will have to have your customer-facing brand, and then you'll have your employer brand. But the employer brand, you're exactly right, cannot be even 90 degrees different from what you're saying out in the public. So use that as your starting point. But as long as you keep who your audience is always in mind of, okay, my audience over here on the customer side cares about quality, product delivery, on schedule deliveries, all that kind of stuff, what my dealer network looks like. Your customer over here on the employee side has, what does this mean for me and my family? Is it going to be satisfying work? Is it fulfilling work? And some of that will obviously influence some of this, but you're right, absolutely. Do not let one go without influencing the other. Great question. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Was this helpful? Just general, nodding heads, yeah, no, yeah, good, okay. Great. Well, appreciate your time. Glad you guys came out, and I'll turn it back over to Melinda for a wrap up, I think.